Good morning and welcome to First Parish in Needham Unitarian Universalist. My name is Reverend Sally Fritchie, and I am the ministerial intern to this congregation. I am so glad you could join us this morning. Our church building remains closed due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, but we at First Parish continue to keep our connection strong, even as we keep our distance. Today's service marks the end of our traditional church year, and starting next week, our Sundays will be led by a mix of lay leaders, guest preachers, and even some virtual field trips to other congregations. Of course, with our regular Zoom social hour afterward. Whether you are a first-time visitor or a long-time member, welcome. We are a congregation of deeds, not creeds, committed to racial justice, to LGBTQ liberation, and to urgent climate action. We are a congregation that cares deeply for the world and for each other. So no matter where you are coming from, you are welcome here today. Allow me to wish you a blessed summer solstice, a happy Father's Day to all those who are celebrating, and a very good morning to you all. Come, let us worship together.
As we prepare to light our chalice, let us remember those who went before. Many of the peoples of the world practice the spirituality of remembering ancestors. For it was because of those who went before that we have our lives here and now. Over the generations, our ancestors developed language and music, arts and sciences, and articulated so many of the values that guide us now. We call our hymnal Singing the Living Tradition because we are not bound by the past. Rather, we are inspired by it to love, to be wise, to nurture wisdom, just as our ancestors made their decisions based on what they perceived to be best for the coming generations, we strive to do as well. Yes, this Father's Day, this day that marks our flower communion, we light this chalice, remembering and giving honor to those who have gone before.
Our opening hymn today, "We're Gonna Sit at the Welcome Table," was composed by enslaved African Americans in the years before the Civil War. This traditional spiritual speaks of the welcome table of heaven, as well as the many welcome tables here on earth being fought over, rebuilt, and imagined into existence by people doing the work of liberation. In honor and celebration of that ongoing work, please join in singing from home, hymn number 407, "We're Gonna Sit at the Welcome Table."
We're gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the covenant is a set of promises the membership of the Church strives to honor with one another and out in the world. Please say along with me, from wherever you are, the words of our First Parish Covenant as printed in your emailed order of service and shown on your screen. We gather as a loving community to encourage and comfort one another. We gather as a diverse community to support each other in our search for spiritual truth. We gather as a service community to live our beliefs through action and care for our world. Though we cannot gather together in person during this time, we are living these promises every day.
Good morning, First Parish friends. When Reverend Sally, wow, it sure is exciting to say Reverend Sally. So, when Reverend Sally asked me to get creative as we were brainstorming how to make flower communion fun, festive, and meaningful as a virtual service, she suggested the idea of sending you all seed paper. All members and friends should have or will soon be receiving seed paper in the mail. You'll hear more about that later. What a lovely metaphor seed paper can be for the seeds that we plant together when we are in community. Going deeper with matching this metaphor to our Unitarian Universalist faith, I remember that I once got seed paper that matches the UU promises. Unitarian Universalists have many ways of articulating our 7 principles in simpler language, and one is known as the Rainbow Promises. Let me introduce them to you with coloring pages that my colleague, Kimberly Tomzak Carlson, made and generously shared with us. Starting with our little red person here, we have respect for all beings. And our orange heart, offer fair and kind treatment to all. And our yellow puzzle piece, yearn to learn about ourselves, others, and the mystery. And our green candle, grow by exploring what is right and true in life. And our blue hand, believe in our ideas and act on them. And our indigo dove, insist on a peaceful, fair, and free world for all. And our purple globe, value our home, earth, that we share. So I decided to use my UU thinking mind and play with our sources of mystery and wonder and science and reasoning by having a seed growing experiment that somehow turned into a seed competitive contest. I planted each seed paper in its own pot, and then I planted another set of all seed promises together in one big pot. Which would grow faster, bigger, and stronger? It would be fun to find out. I started out by soaking them in water for 24 hours as directed. Then I planted a group of the 7 promise seeds together in one old pot, and then the individual ones in mini pots from a rose seedling germination kit. I then watered them daily and waited to see what would happen. The individual promise seeds sprouted first. Maybe it was the special kit I used for them, but it's fun to imagine why our principles may be more visible when we honor them individually. Eventually, there was a tiny sprout in the combined pot, but it never grew. As for the individual seeds, in the beginning are seeds representing our promises of respect all beings, offering fair and kind treatment to all, and yearning to learn about ourselves, others, and the mystery, and valuing our home, earth that we share, we're all off to early, healthy sprouting. As I continue to water them daily, our seed representing grow by exploring what is right and true in life sprouted and surpassed the others. With everything going on these days, I thought it might be an inspiring message that we each need to continue to use our UU thinking minds in all that we do. Whether you believe there is any meaning in the results of my seed planting experiment, may we each be inspired by the metaphor of planting and growing the seeds of our UU promises and faith. As I review them again, I invite you to consider which one you would like to plant seeds of in your life. Respect all beings, offer fair and kind treatment to all, yearn to learn about ourselves, others, and the mystery, grow by exploring what is right and true in life, believe in our ideas and act on them, insist on a peaceful, fair, and free world for all, value our home, earth, that we share. Yes, which one would you like to plant seeds of in your life? In your neighborhood, in your community, in our world? Which one do you hope will grow most strong and powerful? Which one will grow most strong and powerful? I'm curious to hear your stories the next time I see you. Blessed be.
To echo Roberta's message of nurturing and growing our values, please join in singing hymn number 396, I Know This Rose Will Open, a hopeful song written by UU minister Mary Grigolia, and one of my personal favorite hymns. We've come to the time in our service when we share joys and concerns that are very close to our hearts and lives. In this new format, joys and sorrows are emailed to me by Thursday night, and I will share them aloud and light candles for you all. As we are making the link to our virtual Sunday services public and open to all visitors, be aware that we cannot guarantee that news shared in joys and concerns will stay within the First Parish community. So if you wish to share in a more private setting, I encourage you to reach out to me or to our Pastoral Care Associate of the Week, whose name is included in your emailed order of service. Let us now hear the joys and sorrows of our community.
A Candle of Sorrow from Steve B. in loving memory of his mother Mary, who died on April 13th of this year. A Candle of Gratitude from Kay and Clark T. for emerging unscathed from the 4-vehicle crash that totaled their car this weekend. The car behind them rammed into their bumper and pushed them into the cars in front, crumpling the hood and trunk, but leaving the interior untouched. Grateful for the lucky outcome of an otherwise scary situation. A Candle of Gratitude from Sue K. For all those that donated blood yesterday and those who have donated in the past, it is because of your generosity and sharing of a critical life component that Sue has her friend Steve still here and living life well. You never know when you might need a pint of blood, and Sue is so grateful that it was available for Steve and wants it to be available for those future events that might require a blood transfusion. Thank you for donating. A Candle of Great Joy from Elliot and Lynn J. Next weekend, their son Sam will marry Liz, the love of his life. The intimate ceremony will be held in Elliot and Lynn's backyard under the stars. A candle of wonderful joy and celebration for Sally's ordination yesterday. We wish her all the best in the next phase of her life journey and ministry. A Candle of Gratitude from Clyde and Michelle for the opportunity to serve your congregation in these challenging times. We wish you all the best in the next phase of your ministry as well. A candle honoring all the movements that are happening in the world on behalf of justice and equity, including honoring Juneteenth this recent week, and the Poor People's Campaign, and your upcoming General Assembly. A final candle for all the joys and sorrows that are with us and remain unspoken in these times.
This congregation has been supported by the volunteer time and treasure of its members and friends since its founding in 1711. In those 300 years, this community has seen tough times, but we're still here. This is the time in our service when we, the modern keepers of this church, offer to give what we can to build and sustain the world we envision. For most of June, our plate collection is being divided equally between First Parish in Needham and Out Metro West, which helps build communities where LGBTQ youth thrive. This very active nonprofit organization currently runs more than a dozen youth meetings per month out of locations in Wellesley, Newton, and Framingham, serving over 1,000 youth and their families. To donate to today's offering, you can use our Text to Give program. Our Text to Give number is 73256. That's 73256. And instructions on how to use Text to Give should be on your screen, or you can find them in your emailed order of service. Alternatively, you can mail a check made out to First Parish in Needham to our address, 23 Dedham Ave, Needham, Mass. 02492. Whether you're using a check or your phone, please make sure you specify whether your donation is intended for today's plate collection or it should be counted toward your pledge for either this or the next church year. Thank you so much for everything that you are able to give to help support and sustain this congregation and the work of our vital community partners. Please take these next few moments to give what you can and know it will be gratefully received. Thank you so much.
Spring, one sunny day, my sweetheart left me. Lord, she went away. She's gone, I don't worry, 'cause I'm sitting on top of the world. She called me up from down in El Paso. Said, come back, baby. Lord, I need you so. Now she's gone, I don't worry, 'cause I'm sitting on top of the world. Like my peaches, don't you shake my tree. Get out of my orchard and let the peaches be. Now she's gone, I don't worry. Sitting on top of the world.
It was 1923. The first flower communion service was celebrated by Norbert Šepek in the newly founded Unitarian Church in Czechoslovakia. Šepek had been a doctor's student in the United States when he first learned of Unitarianism. It spoke to his soul. You don't have to believe alike to love alike. So when he returned to Czechoslovakia, he sent out the call, and a new church was founded. The congregation attracted many of the most progressive thinking people in Czechoslovakia. The Reverend Čapek became a leader of the democratic thought in the whole country. The Unitarians in the United States were very impressed with this new church and translated Čapek's poetry and sermons into English. The flower communion in Čapek's mind would be a ritual that the new church would celebrate. The sharing of flowers would embody the religious vision of the congregation. It would celebrate the idea that each person had a unique contribution to make to the whole, and each person benefited from the gifts of others. The format had to be one that would not alienate any who had left behind other religious traditions. The traditional Christian communion service with bread and wine wouldn't work because his congregation was made up of rebels who had rejected tradition. So he turned to the native beauty of their countryside for elements of communion which would be genuine to them. The service we celebrate today is a result of that thinking. 15 years later, after the first flower communion, Czechoslovakia was invaded by German troops. Norbert Čapek was arrested and sent to a concentration camp. Many other Unitarians went underground and joined the resistance. Maya Čapek, Norbert's wife, had been on a speaking tour when the Germans invaded, and there was an arrest warrant issued by the Germans for her arrest. So she stayed in the United States and continued speaking out against the German invasion. Maya introduced the flower communion at the first parish in Cambridge, Massachusetts in 1941. She did not know what was happening to Norbert, but she knew that he would want her to continue to struggle for democracy and human rights. After the war was ended, it was learned that Norbert had been the victim of Nazi medical experimentation. And had died from poisoning. The knowledge that Norbert had died fighting for human rights and democracy had a huge impact on Unitarians in many countries. At first, Unitarians in the United States celebrated flower communion as a way to be in solidarity with the people of Europe struggling for democracy and human rights. But soon, it became an intergenerational service to symbolize the community as a whole, the gifts of everyone, the gifts of the congregation. So let us ponder this. Flower communion has been celebrated for almost 100 years. 7 generations of Unitarians have brought flowers to their church and left that church with a flower brought by someone else. They have given and they have received. The flower communion has been celebrated by Unitarian Universalists in North and South America, Europe, Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and the Pacific Islands. It brings people together, not only the people gathered here today, but our co-religionists around the world and over time. It is our flower communion.
Seeing all those lovely flowers and the lovely faces that accompanied them, I can't help but think back to the flower communions of our past. The parade of children streaming in from the back of the sanctuary, the profusion of color, the dozens of vases and pitchers and jars, the silk flowers there to include anyone with allergies. I remember the sheer abundance and joy of it all, and I miss it. But in today's flower communion, I still see that beauty, that abundance, the detailed uniqueness of every bloom, and the way their differences complement each other and come together into something profoundly lovely. This communion has been an annual tradition for UUs ever since Maya Chapek first brought it to America. And though we are physically distant from each other, the links of that tradition remain unbroken. This year's link in the chain just looks a little different, that's all. But this is appropriate after all, because this year's world looks a little different, doesn't it? When I arrived at First Parish 2 years ago, fresh out of seminary, I never could have imagined that this would be the historical moment I'd eventually be ordained into. I thought the hardest thing that we'd have to weather would be that time Reverend Katie got a concussion. And now here we are, in the midst of a global pandemic, at the cusp of great social shifting toward racial awareness and justice, with the future still feeling so beyond our control. Here we are celebrating a virtual flower communion, a phrase I'm not sure I ever imagined myself saying. And this ritual, virtual or otherwise, has always been about giving and receiving. Bringing something beautiful from your life out in the world into the church, joining it together with the offerings of others, and then taking something back, carrying a piece of that church community back out into the world with you. It's a chance to experience our Unitarian Universalist principle of interconnectedness, not as abstract theology, but as theopoetics, a more aesthetic and direct spiritual experience, a ritual of literal exchange. We all give and we all take, and that is the process by which we build our lives together. This period of forced distance has had its own theopoetics, and I'm beginning to see how it too might be about giving and receiving. In fact, I have seen in this moment of pandemic and uprising and uncertainty, I have seen it bring forth gifts from this congregation that continue to amaze me. The pandemic may have prevented you from bringing flowers today, but in these past months, I have seen you bring so much more than flowers. While this moment asks so much of us, I have seen this community offer it up with both hands. Your time, your resources, your energy, your tears and righteous anger, your vulnerability and willingness to change. When we went online, I saw you picking up new technology, guiding each other through the learning curve and frustration. You brought patience. When businesses started closing, people losing jobs, I saw donations to the discretionary fund we use to help members in financial crisis go up. You brought generosity. When faced with profound loss, the deaths of beloved family and friends, I saw you mourn together, catching each other in a vast web of care, holding socially distanced vigils and Zoom memorials, sending cards and casseroles. You brought care and empathy. I saw you organizing lyceums to stay informed and engaged, organizing meditations to stay centered and balanced. You brought intellect and you brought inner peace. When the children of a neighboring community couldn't afford the face masks they needed, when local essential workers needed protective equipment, I saw you sew dozens and dozens of masks, each one carefully sealed in a plastic bag with loving instructions on how to wash and wear it. You brought compassion. When the time came to hold an annual meeting and plan ahead for a future that seems impossible to know, I saw you come together and create a budget that reflects our shared values and the true mission of this church. You brought vision. When the movement for Black lives rose up and called out for solidarity and support, I saw you show up. I saw you marching and organizing and educating each other. You brought commitment. When weeks of isolation stretched into months, I saw you picking up phones, keeping in touch, holding tight to those who are most vulnerable, doing everything you can to make sure no one gets lost. You brought friendship. And perhaps most relevant to Flower Sunday, when the going got tough and the world seemed so ugly, you went out to your yards and your windowsills and you gardened. You dug down into the dirt and planted seeds. You weeded and watered and cared for the earth, nurtured the tiny shoots and thorns and blossoms that grew. You brought beauty. All of this is what you have brought to the altar of our flower communion in these strange times. This altar is overflowing with your gifts, not with the lilacs and daisies and roses that you brought in previous years, but with the blessings of friendship, patience, compassion, commitment, intellect, and empathy. This is the beauty of this community. This is your gift to the world and to each other. May we live within a constant flower communion, a giving and taking, a bringing forward of our gifts and adding them to the abundance on the altar, and receiving the gifts of others, fulfilling our own soul's deep need. May we celebrate, as we do every year, this beautiful tradition. Amen. I've spoken a great deal about the gifts that this community has brought to the world, but that is only half of the exchange. Flower communion is also about accepting the blessings that others provide. I know that I, for one, have received many gifts from my time here at First Parish, and I hope I've given some in return. In fact, as a gesture of my love and gratitude to this congregation, I have one last gift, symbolic of this last Flower Sunday together. With the help of some of the talented gardeners in our congregation, I found a beautiful Weigela plant to gift to the First Parish Memorial Garden. Weigela, as you see, is a shrub with dark purple leaves, and in the spring it produces masses of bright pink tube-shaped flowers, perfect for pollinators. I hope that it will bring many seasons of beauty and joy to this community. And I hope that it takes root and thrives under the loving care of this congregation, much as I did in these last 2 years. Now, in previous years, Reverend Katie would say words of blessing here as we each held and contemplated the flowers we would receive and take home with us. And though we can't exchange flowers in person, in the coming days, every household of First Parish will be receiving an envelope containing a small, colorful heart, cut from seed paper. Each heart is embedded with wildflower seeds and can be planted and grown into a flower of your own. These seeds are a gift to you from your First Parish community and a symbol of how our connection remains unbroken even through these difficult and distanced times. To grow your flower communion flower, soak the paper in water, then place it on soil, sprinkle a light layer of soil over the top, and keep it well damp and in a sunny spot, and you'll see sprouts coming up in just 7 to 10 days. Just as we nurture our congregational connections with our love and attention, we will provide water, sunlight, soil, and air to these seeds and enjoy all the beauty and growth of life's promise as they begin to bloom. Soon we will all have a small, beautiful reminder of this beloved community to carry us through these summer months. Allow me to bless these flowers that are yet to be. May the flower you grow serve as a reminder of how we each bring our unique gifts to the world, how we reach toward a common source of light and warmth, how our roots go deep and feed our souls, how we unfold into new, tender growth even as the ground shifts beneath us. Blessed are these seeds, and blessed are each of you. Amen. Our closing hymn today, Go Now in Peace, was sung for years here at First Parish to send our youngest members away to their classrooms and religious exploration. Today, it sends all of us away into the summer with its gentle words of blessing. Please join in singing hymn number 413, Go Now in Peace.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
As we close our worship today, please remember to keep a careful eye out for emails from First Parish and follow us on social media so you can keep up with opportunities for connection with your faith community during these times of physical isolation. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to read your whole bell notes each week for links and opportunities to connect. When today's service ends, you are all invited to join us for our Zoom social hour, and you can find the link for that in your Saturday bell notes. Please remember, if you fall ill or need any pastoral support, to reach out to our pastoral care team and caring crew via phone or email. We also encourage all of you to strongly check in with your friends at First Parish and to double-check your own contact information in our online Realm directory if you have not done so recently. At this time, when we can only convene by phone call, email, and video chat, we want to be particularly sure that we know how to reach out to each other. I miss you all more every week. We always extinguish our chalice with words promising to carry its flame in our hearts until we are together again. And I know that I and you and all of us are deeply committed to that promise, no matter how long it is until we are together again. As we extinguish our chalice today, please join me from home in saying these words as printed in your emailed order of service, written by Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Elizabeth Selle Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
For our benediction, the final words that will send us all forth into the summer, allow me to share this from UU minister Reverend Israel Bafardi. He writes, "The road that lies ahead of us is a long one, and the pace of progress will sometimes feel glacially slow. Never forget that glaciers over time can carve out grand canyons and great lakes. Moving tectonic plates can raise up mountains over millennia, or they can explode awe-inspiring volcanoes in milliseconds. Our commitment to love and justice can do the same." This, then, is my goodbye to First Parish. I leave you knowing that your love and your commitments make you capable of raising new mountain ranges of justice and deep truth in this world. I leave knowing that you will continue on your path toward becoming always a more loving community and more diverse community, a community that serves the world in every way it can. I leave knowing that you will care for each other, challenge each other, and reach beyond these walls to touch the hearts of those who most need what this community has to offer. May you hold tight to the connections that nourish you. May you be brave. May you live into this unknown future with all the gifts that I know you have. Amen, and go now in peace.
And give you peace.
Are we gonna have a rap party?